At the beginning of the 20th century, humanity took a step that forever changed history. On December 17, 1903, Orville Wright made the world's first controlled flight in a powered, heavier-than-air machine. This moment became the starting point for aviation, when the dream of flight turned into reality. The Wright brothers rose into the sky and laid the foundations for the creation of efficient wings and propellers, which became the standard for all aircraft. Their experiments opened the doors to a new era, where engineers and designers began to dream of machines capable of carrying dozens or even hundreds of people across oceans, delivering cargo, or waging war in the skies. In the 3 decades after the first flight, aviation made a tremendous leap. From wooden biplanes with fabric wings to colossal machines that amazed the imagination with their size, power, and ambition. In the interwar period, as the world was still recovering from the First World War and the Second loomed only as a shadow on the horizon, engineers in different countries competed to create the largest and most powerful aircraft. Aviation became a symbol of progress, strength, and national prestige. Germany, the Soviet Union, the United States, each sought to prove that their machines could conquer the skies. At the center of this story stand 3 aircraft that became true giants of their time: the Dornier Do X, the K-7, and the Hughes H-4 Hercules. The Dornier Do X, created in Germany, impressed with its luxury and size, but never found its place in aviation. The K-7, a Soviet project, was a bold experiment that ended in tragedy. The Hughes H4 Hercules, known as the Spruce Goose, became a legend after completing only a single flight. These aircraft embodied stories of dreams, innovations, and the challenges their creators faced. The interwar period was an era of rapid change. After the First World War, aviation became a tool for civilian transportation. People dreamed of long journeys, of airplanes replacing ships on transatlantic routes. Nations restricted by treaties, such as Germany after the Treaty of Versailles, searched for ways to bypass prohibitions, building something grand abroad. In the Soviet Union, aviation was part of ideology, a symbol of socialist progress and power. In the United States, private entrepreneurs like Howard Hughes saw in aircraft the opportunity to change the world. The Dornier Do X was envisioned as a floating palace for passengers capable of crossing the Atlantic. The K-7 was intended to be a universal machine, a bomber, a transport plane, and an airliner for long-range flights. The Hercules was created to carry hundreds of soldiers across the ocean, avoiding the threat of German submarines. Despite their grandeur, these aircraft never became truly needed. Their fate is a story of how even the boldest ideas can remain experiments. We will look at how they were created, the challenges faced by their designers, and why, despite all efforts, they never found their place in aviation history. We begin with the Dornier Do X, the German project that sought to conquer the skies, but collided with the limits of time and economics. After the First World War, Germany found itself in a difficult position. The Treaty of Versailles of 1919 imposed strict limitations on its military and aviation industry, prohibiting the creation of large aircraft. Yet the ambitions of German engineers remained unshaken. They sought ways to bypass these restrictions and return Germany to the forefront of aviation progress. One such project was the Dornier Do X, a giant flying boat intended to become a symbol of innovation and prestige. The idea of creating this aircraft was first conceived by Claude Dornier in 1924, and development began at the end of 1925. This project aimed to transform the concept of passenger travel, making it as luxurious as journeys on transatlantic liners. The Do X was envisioned as the largest and most powerful aircraft of its time. When it was completed in 1929, it became the heaviest flying boat in the world, holding this status until the mid-20th century. Its design was remarkable: a monoplane with an all-duralumin hull and wings built from a duralumin frame reinforced with steel. The wings were covered with strong linen fabric coated with aluminum paint, giving the aircraft a shiny appearance. Instead of the traditional wing-mounted floats, the Do X featured special stub wings that provided stability on water and also served as platforms for boarding passengers. To circumvent the Treaty of Versailles, the project was financed by the German Ministry of Transport while construction was moved abroad, to the Swiss town of Altenrhein on the shores of Lake Constance. There, a factory was specially built for the creation of this giant. Germany was prepared to invest enormous resources to realize this ambitious project. After 240,000 working hours, the first Do X was completed in June 1929. Its scale was staggering. The aircraft had 3 decks designed for the comfortable transportation of passengers. The main deck housed a smoking room, a bar, a dining salon, and seats for 66 passengers, which could be converted into sleeping berths for overnight flights. In the rear section were a galley, lavatories, and a cargo hold. The upper deck contained the cockpit, the navigator's station, the radio room, and the engine control room. The lower deck was reserved for fuel tanks and 9 watertight compartments that provided safety. The Do X reached a maximum speed of 170 kilometers per hour, which was a respectable result for a machine of such size. Compared to other interwar aircraft, it stood out for its dimensions and unique design. 3 decks, luxurious salons with a bar and dining room, and seats convertible into sleeping berths made it resemble an airborne ocean liner. However, even after the engine replacement, fuel consumption remained enormous, making the aircraft extremely expensive to operate. For short flights, it was uneconomical due to the high cost, and for long-distance flights, it was too slow, reducing its appeal compared to ocean liners. In total, 3 Do X aircraft were built. The first belonged to the Dornier Company, while the other 2 were delivered to Italy, named Umberto Maddalena and Alessandro Guidoni. The Italian versions were slightly larger and equipped with Fiat A22R water-cooled engines, which allowed them to perform more efficiently. Yet even these modifications could not change the fate of the project. The first prototype was successfully operated by the German airline Deutsche Lufthansa, but its slowness and high operating costs made commercial flights uncompetitive. In the same year, the world was struck by the Great Depression, which sharply reduced demand for expensive air travel. Financial hardships hit the aviation industry, and the Do X became one of its casualties. Despite its initial successes, the aircraft never found its niche. Its size and luxurious interiors were impressive, but economic realities and technical limitations proved stronger than the ambitions of its creators. All 3 Do X aircraft were eventually scrapped, leaving behind only a memory in aviation history. This giant became an example of how advanced technology can fail because of external circumstances. The next part takes us to the Soviet Union, where another ambitious project, the K-7 aircraft, was intended to become a universal machine, but its fate turned out to be even more dramatic. In the Soviet Union of the interwar years, aviation became both a technological breakthrough and a symbol of the progress of the socialist state. While the rest of the world marveled at biplanes, the Kharkiv Design Bureau, under the leadership of Konstantin Kalinin, was creating an aircraft meant to surpass all conventional ideas about aviation. The K-7, developed in the early 1930s, became a unique project that combined advanced engineering solutions, ambitious goals, and bold design concepts. This aircraft was envisioned as a multi-purpose machine, capable of performing the roles of a bomber, troop transport, and passenger airliner. At the time of its creation, the K-7 was the largest aircraft in the Soviet Union, and its appearance was intended to underline the technological power of the country. The Do X reached a maximum speed of 170 kilometers per hour, which was a respectable result for a machine of such size. Compared to other interwar aircraft, it stood out for its dimensions and unique design. 3 decks, luxurious salons with a bar and dining room, and seats convertible into sleeping berths made it resemble an airborne ocean liner. However, even after the engine replacement, fuel consumption remained enormous, making the aircraft extremely expensive to operate. For short flights, it was uneconomical due to the high cost, and for long-distance flights, it was too slow, reducing its appeal compared to ocean liners. In total, 3 Do X aircraft were built. The first belonged to the Dornier Company, while the other 2 were delivered to Italy. named Umberto Maddalena and Alessandro Guidoni. The Italian versions were slightly larger and equipped with Fiat A22R water-cooled engines, which allowed them to perform more efficiently. Yet even these modifications could not change the fate of the project. The first prototype was successfully operated by the German airline Deutsche Lufthansa, but its slowness and high operating costs made commercial flights uncompetitive. In the same year, the world was struck by the Great Depression, which sharply reduced demand for expensive air travel. Financial hardships hit the aviation industry, and the Do X became one of its casualties. Despite its initial successes, the aircraft never found its niche. Its size and luxurious interiors were impressive, but economic realities and technical limitations proved stronger than the ambitions of its creators. All three Do X aircraft were eventually scrapped, leaving behind only a memory in aviation history. This giant became an example of how advanced technology can fail because of external circumstances. The next part takes us to the Soviet Union, where another ambitious project, the K-7 aircraft, was intended to become a universal machine, but its fate turned out to be even more dramatic. In the Soviet Union of the interwar years, aviation became both a technological breakthrough and a symbol of the progress of the socialist state. While the rest of the world marveled at biplanes, the Kharkiv Design Bureau, under the leadership of Konstantin Kalinin, was creating an aircraft meant to surpass all conventional ideas about aviation. The K-7, developed in the early 1930s, became a unique project that combined advanced engineering solutions, ambitious goals, and bold design concepts. This aircraft was envisioned as a multi-purpose machine capable of performing the roles of a bomber, troop transport, and passenger airliner. At the time of its creation, the K-7 was the largest aircraft in the Soviet Union, and its appearance was intended to underline the technological power of the country. The design of the K-7 was striking in its originality. Instead of the traditional biplane layout, Kalinin chose a cantilever monoplane configuration with a thick elliptical wing, which became the defining feature of the aircraft. The wing had a span of 53 meters and an area of 452 square meters, which allowed it to house passenger cabins, fuel tanks, and even access passages for mechanics to reach the engines during flight. The wing's center section, 6 meters wide, 10 meters long, and 2.33 meters high, served as the main space for passengers and cargo. It was skinned with duralumin, while the wing consoles were covered with fabric. From the center section extended two booms that supported the twin-fin tail with a horizontal stabilizer. This configuration provided strength and stability. The K-7 was powered by 7 AM-34 engines, each producing 750 horsepower, 6 mounted on the wing and 1 with a pusher propeller in the rear fuselage. The landing gear consisted of 2 large bogies, each with 3 wheels fitted with fairings. The left bogie contained an integrated entry door and stairs leading to the wing, ensuring the aircraft remained level on the ground. To control such a massive machine, Kalinin introduced powered control systems for the first time in the Soviet Union, significantly easing the pilot's workload. Control surfaces and ailerons were equipped with trim tabs mounted on light booms, allowing precise adjustment in flight. These solutions were innovative for their time and demonstrated a forward-looking approach to aircraft construction. The aircraft was designed to fulfill several roles. As a passenger liner, the K-7 could carry 120 passengers over a range of up to 5,000 kilometers in its standard configuration, or 64 passengers in a luxury version. Inside the wing were comfortable cabins, a kitchen, a radio room, and even telephone service, all resembling the amenities of a luxury airliner. As a bomber, the K-7 was a true flying fortress, armed with 8 20mm cannons, 8 7.62mm machine guns, and bombing equipment. In its airborne assault role, it could carry 112 paratroopers with full gear, making it a versatile tool for military operations. The K-7's crew consisted of 11 members. 2 pilots, a navigator, a radio operator, and a chief mechanic were stationed in the forward cockpit projecting from the wing, while the rest of the crew were distributed across different sections of the aircraft. Its unique design allowed mechanics to reach the engines in flight through internal passages within the wing, a revolutionary solution at the time. The fuel system included 14 tanks located in the wing consoles, providing the necessary reserves for long-distance flights. All these features made the K-7 a true engineering marvel, ahead of its time. The development of the K-7 was a response to the Soviet Union's need for a universal aviation platform. At a time when biplanes dominated aviation, Kalinin dared to create something fundamentally new, using advanced materials and technologies. His vision was to merge civilian and military functions into one machine that could transport passengers over vast distances, support army operations, or deliver paratroopers. The K-7 became a symbol of Soviet ambition, but its fate turned out to be tragic. The first prototype of the K-7 began its test flights in the early 1930s. The aircraft demonstrated impressive capabilities. Its enormous wing, 7 AM-34 engines, and innovative powered controls allowed this massive machine to be flown with relative ease. But during a maximum speed test on November 21, 1933, disaster struck. The aircraft entered a flutter condition, a phenomenon in which structural vibrations intensify to a critical level, leading to destruction. At that time, flutter was poorly understood, and neither designers nor pilots knew how to combat it effectively. Test pilot Sneguryov tried to save the situation, instinctively adjusting engine modes, but to no avail. The K-7 broke apart in midair, and of the 20 people on board, 15 were killed. This crash dealt a heavy blow to the project, which carried high hopes. The catastrophe revealed serious structural flaws that required extensive corrections. Flutter exposed weaknesses in the strength calculations of the wing and tail assembly, making major redesigns necessary. Soviet engineers began work on 2 additional prototypes, hoping to correct the deficiencies and bring the K-7 to serial production. In 1935, however, Soviet aircraft design priorities shifted dramatically. The focus turned to smaller, more maneuverable aircraft, which were considered more practical for both military and civilian use. Construction of the 2 new K-7 prototypes was halted, and soon the program was permanently closed. The aircraft, that was meant to be the pride of Soviet aviation, remained only in blueprints and photographs. Even more tragic was the fate of the K-7's chief designer, Konstantin Kalinin. In 1937, mass repressions began in the Soviet Union, and the aviation industry was not spared. As part of the campaign to expose sabotage and espionage, Kalinin was arrested on April 1, 1938, in Voronezh. The case file has not survived, and the exact charges remain unknown, but such obscurity was common during Stalin's purges. On October 22 of that year, the military collegium of the Supreme Court of the USSR sentenced Kalinin to death for sabotage and espionage. He was executed the same day in the basement of the NKVD prison in Voronezh. Only in August 1955, after Stalin's death, was Kalinin posthumously rehabilitated, though this could not undo what had been lost. Closure of the K-7 project and the execution of Kalinin became symbols of how political repression and shifting priorities could destroy even the most promising developments. The aircraft, which might have been a breakthrough in world aviation, remained an experiment while its creator became a victim of the system. In 1972, academician Ivan Artabolevsky compared Kalinin to Igor Sikorsky, noting that America buried Sikorsky as a national hero, while Kalinin was lost young in his own homeland. The K-7 became a striking example of lost potential, when an innovative idea failed to reach its full realization due to external circumstances. The next part takes us to the United States, where Howard Hughes created the Hughes H-4 Hercules, an aircraft meant to answer the challenges of the Second World War, but remembered in history for only a single flight. At the height of the Second World War, German submarines threatened Allied convoys in the Atlantic. the United States sought new ways to transport troops and cargo. Maritime shipping was suffering catastrophic losses, especially in early 1942, when the German U-boat fleet unleashed true terror. By the end of the year, the situation had partially stabilized, but the threat remained. The idea arose to transport cargo and soldiers by air, which required creating an aircraft with exceptional payload capacity and long range. Hughes Aircraft, under the leadership of Howard Hughes, undertook the task, designing the Hughes H4 Hercules, the largest flying boat in history. The machine was nicknamed the Spruce Goose, though in reality it was built of birch plywood. The order came in 1942 from the U.S. government, which allocated $13 million for the creation of a prototype. The idea originated with industrial magnate Henry J. Kaiser, known for producing the Liberty-class ships. He proposed building an aircraft capable of carrying 750 fully equipped soldiers across the ocean, bypassing the danger of submarines. Because of the wartime shortage of aluminum, Hughes decided to use wood, laminated birch plywood. This solution made the Hercules unique, while also complicating its development. Initially designated HK-1 from the names Hughes and Kaiser, the aircraft had a record wingspan of 98 meters, a figure unmatched until 2017. Its weight reached 136 tons, making it the largest flying boat of its time. Perfectionist that he was, Hughes insisted on building the aircraft to flawless standards, which led to significant delays. His pursuit of perfection clashed with bureaucratic obstacles. The U.S. government, having lost interest after the war, tried to terminate the contract. By 1947, when construction was finally completed, the project had consumed $22 million of government funding and $18 million of Hughes's personal money. These enormous expenses drew the attention of the Senate, which formed a commission to investigate the project's feasibility. The Hercules was launched in 1947. On November 2nd, Howard Hughes himself took the controls for trials. During taxi tests in Los Angeles Harbor, before journalists and spectators, Hughes unexpectedly lifted the aircraft into the air, despite the official prohibition against flight. The Spruce Goose flew 2 kilometers at an altitude of 20 meters and a speed of 120 kilometers per hour, then executed a perfect landing. This single flight silenced critics who had called the project a waste of resources. Hughes proved that his giant could fly, and the moment entered history as one of aviation's defining achievements. The flight of the Hercules was both a technical accomplishment and a personal triumph for Hughes, who had staked his money and reputation on the project. Afterward, the Hercules never flew again. Hughes maintained it in flight-ready condition until his death in 1976, spending about $1 million annually on its upkeep. After Hughes's death, the Spruce Goose became a museum exhibit. At first, it was housed in a museum in Long Beach, California, and in 1993, it was moved to the Evergreen Aviation Museum in McMinnville, Oregon. Today, the aircraft attracts around 300,000 visitors each year who come to marvel at this unique machine. The Hercules became a symbol of engineering boldness, while also standing as an example of a project that never found practical application. Its single flight remained a legend, highlighting the fine line between ambition and reality. The stories of the Dornier Do X, the K-7, and the Hughes H4 Hercules reveal how humanity's dream of conquering the skies collided with technical, economic, and political barriers. These giants, despite their grandeur, remained experiments, yet their significance in aviation history is undeniable. They remind us that innovation often demands sacrifice, and that success depends on genius, timing, and circumstance.